Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Goyo Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for April 2022. I've always liked the different Goyo monsters that we have gotten from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D series. They were used by Officer Trudge and then used again in the Arc 5 series by Sector Security. And with it, a bunch of different synchro monsters that focus on the Earth attribute, including even one fusion monster for the deck. So with it, we have basically a deck that's meant to get out a bunch of synchro monsters, but also utilize the many different Goyo monsters as the majority of the different extra monsters that we have. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck. The Goyo monsters don't actually have that many cards that relate to them in the main deck. Most of them focus in the extra deck. So we went for a pretty generic synchro lineup for the main deck, with our first being at least one of the tuners that Officer Trudge used in the series, and that is Jute Fighter. Once per turn, you can change one face-up attack position monster your opponent controls to face-up defense position. So this is meant as a way to at least get around some of the higher attack point monsters with some of your cards like Goyo Guardian, or even some of the other synchros we can make like Goyo Chaser, and attack over those monsters and then gain control of them on your side of the field. Jute Fighter is also one of your go-to tuners, being a level 2 tuner with some of the level 1 options. We can use it to then summon out our Goyo Defender, which is a big playmaker in a lot of the different ones we can do in this deck. The other tuner that I run in the deck, being an Earth tuner, is TG Striker. I run this just as an easy special summon monster onto the field. Being level 2 for both of the tuners doesn't really affect any of our plays, because we run a wide variety of other different level monsters to then be able to summon out the many other different monsters we run in the extra deck for those plays. For more support for special summoning out monsters onto the field, I also run 3 Goblinberg. There's no restriction with Goblinberg for what you can summon out with this card when you special summon the other monster with it. When it's normal summon, you can special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your hand, then change this card to defense position. So you summon out your tuner with that play, and then you have your play right there for summoning out your Goyo Guardian onto the field. Or if you go for any of the other monsters, the main play with Goblinberg is to rely on the level 6 summons, but not just Goyo Guardian. You can also summon out Goyo Predator onto the field, with this play being more of the generic synchros we have in our extra deck. I also run 3 Marauding Captain. Same concept with Goblinberg along with Marauding Captain, being able to summon out a tuner very easily onto the field for our level 5 plays like Goyo Chaser with Marauding Captain. But we also have some other synchros, being the Earth tuners we run to summon out cards like Naturia Beast, which also help just for locking down our opponent and what they can do. I also run 3 Junk Forward along with TG Striker. It's just another easy special summon card onto the field if you control no monsters, being able to special summon this card from your hand. So you can summon out your Junk Forward and then still have the Marauding Captain or your Goblinberg play for then special summoning out the different tuners that we run onto the field to use. And I also run 3 Fire Flint Lady. With this card, if you control a warrior monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can send this card from the field to the graveyard to special summon one level 4 lower warrior monster from your hand. If you do, your opponent cannot target it with card effects this turn. You can only use each effect of Fire Flint Lady once per turn. So this card is also a target to summon out with Isolde Two Tails of the Noble Knight, being able to just send 1 equip spell from the deck to the graveyard to summon it out, and being just another special summon from our hand can help to adjust some of the other levels for our plays. But also, it is one of the main go-to Goyo Defender plays, summoning out your Jute Fighter, controlling that warrior monster, and then special summoning your Fire Flint Lady from your hand to the field. The specifics for your Goyo monsters is just with Goyo Guardian being an Earth tuner, but then it says 1 non-tuner monster. So even though Fire Flint Lady is a fire tribute monster, it can still help for that special summon onto the field. And I also run 3 Dark Sea Rescue. You do invest a lot in synchro plays in this deck, so having a card that can just, when it's used for synchro and sent to the graveyard, being able to draw a card, make up for some of the resources you go into. The best play with Dark Sea Rescue is to special summon out your TG Striker onto the field, and then just normal summon your Dark Sea Rescue, and you still have your Goyo Defender synchro summon along with the draw thanks to this card. And for some of the lower numbers for monsters, I also run 2 Little Trooper. If this card is destroyed by battle, you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower warrior monster from your deck in face down defense position. So you can just go for your Striker or your Jute Fighter with this card and set them up on the field for you to use. You can even summon out Fire Flint Lady with this card, but I also like it as another level 1 option to summon out onto the field with our Isolde. And lastly, for the monsters, just the one spell striker. We do run a good number of spells in this deck, including ones that can be set up into the graveyard with a sold. So just being able to banish it to summon this card onto the field, being another level 3 monster for that option, because sometimes we could just be short that one monster to summon out, and that's where Spell Striker comes in handy. And that is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. The spells are pretty generic, just like the monsters we're running. But since we do have the fusion option of Goyo Emperor in the deck, I'm running 2 Miracle Synchro Fusion. I'd say it's the best way to summon out this card because you can make use of banishing from the graveyard as well from the field, or even just setting it up on the field if your opponent destroys it while it's on the field, being able to draw a card. I like running 2 because along with Naturia Beast, we're also running Naturia Barkion, and so we can not only go into Goyo Emperor, but also into Naturia Exterio by banishing those cards from the graveyard. But I'd say the Goyo Emperor is a much easier play, which I'll show at the end of the video for the combo you can do, just with the 2 main deck monsters to summon it out. For the rest of the spells, I run the 1 DDR Different Dimension Reincarnation, the 1 Moonmere Shield, 1 Living Fossil, and 1 Phoenix Blade for all the send targets for Isolde. Now, with these, you do have the play to go all the way up to a level 4, but the best part is if you do open up some of these spells in your hand, you still have special summons because there are plenty of level 1 warrior monsters that we run in this deck that you can summon with her. And the rest of these spells are 1-ofs as well. 1 Reinforcements of the Army, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Call by the Grave, 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Pot of Desires, along with 1 Scapegoat for the additional special summon of tokens to assist on the field. If you want to run an additional equip spell, you could take out the Upstart Goblin for that spot. And lastly, the 1 Instant Fusion. We do run 2 other Instant Fusion targets just because those additional monsters really do help for any of our plays we may try to go into. And then lastly, for the main deck, the only trap I run is 3 Call of the Haunted. If you want to run Infinite Impermanence instead of this card in this spot, that's completely fine as well. It's completely player preference for what the last trap line it can be. This is just another way for me to get resources on the field for me to use for my synchro plays. But Infinite Impermanence can stop opponent's monsters if they go first, so it's just as good of a spot to fill in for the traps. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck for the Goyo monsters. This is the most exciting part of the video I was excited for. I run the 1 Goyo Guardian. I wanted to run more of this card, but it really is, filled basically with all the different Goyo monsters that I was figuring out what to just take out for this extra deck, having 15 monsters in total for these spots. But Goyo Guardian, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your field in defense position. This is what makes Jute Fighter so handy. It switches that opponent's monster to defense. You can easily hit over it with Goyo Guardian. Being a 2800 attack point monster, there's really not too many monsters that once they're in defense position can really stand up against this card. The next synchro that we run 3 of is Goyo Defender. You definitely want to run 3 of this card. It is the max potential card since we're no longer restricted by the extra monster zone for summoning out our synchro monsters. Goyo Defender, once per turn, if all monsters you control are Earth Warrior synchro monsters, you can special summon Goyo Defender from your extra deck, and when this card is targeted for an attack, you can make this card gain 1000 attack for each Earth Warrior synchro monster you control other than this card until the end of damage steps. So you can just use Goyo Defender to summon out a Goyo Defender and then use that Goyo Defender to summon out another Goyo Defender, giving you 3 monsters on the field that you can either have for a 3000 attack point rush at your opponent, or be used for more of the synchro setup play that I spoke of before. But before that, we'll go through the rest of the Goyo Synchro monsters. I run the 1 Goyo Chaser, a level 5 generic monster. It gains 300 attack for each Earth Warrior Synchro monster on the field. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your side of the field, but its attack becomes halved. So unlike Goyo Guardian, you can summon the monster with Goyo Chaser in attack position, but it just has half the attack, but still an added monster that it can attack into your opponent for more damage. And I also run 1 Goyo Predator with this card. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your side of the field, but any battle damage it inflicts to the player is halved. So kind of an opposite premise of Goyo Chaser, just having the damage but still keeping the attack, and being another level 6 monster, generic like Goyo Guardian to use. And the last one being Goyo King, a level 8 synchro monster. It needs 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner synchro monsters. So with it, the best plays to summon this card out would either be your Goyo Predator along with your Goyo Guardian and a tuner monster, or 2 of the Goyo Defenders to then use to summon out with the 1 level 2 tuner. And with this card, when it declares an attack on the opponent's monster, this card gains 400 attack for each Earth Warrior synchro monster you control until the end of damage step. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects to either special summon it to your side of the field or take control of one face-up monster your opponent controls. I would say it's the perfected Goyo monster, having no real limitations with its card effect, just being a little more difficult to summon out onto the field, obviously. Even sharing these same stats as Goyo Guardian is what I feel was meant to balance out Goyo King compared to all the other ones. And for the rest of the synchros, just 1 Naturia Beast and 1 Naturia Barkion. Once again, great Earth monsters to synchro summon out onto the field, stopping your opponent's spell and traps. And for the fusions, I run the 1 Goyo Emperor and the 1 Exterio. Goyo Emperor is a 3,300 attack point monster that you can just take away resources from your opponent whenever they would try to summon a monster, or just by you tributing an Earth Warrior type synchro monster to gain control of that monster. Very, very strong and very easy to summon out in this deck. For the other fusion monsters, which I will show in just a bit, so don't forget that. For the other ones, for the instant fusion targets, the Carbonala Warrior and the Dragoness, the Wicked Knight, depending on which level monster you need on the field for your play. And for the link monsters, I run 1 Isolde and 1 Vert, the Vert being a very important part of the Miracle Synchro Fusion summon and our Goyo Guardians, and Isolde just being able to set up more and more warrior plays on the field, but also being able to add a warrior monster from our deck to our hand. So this card can just add Fire Flint Lady to our hand for us to then special summon out onto the field, and then being able to send this card from the field to special summon another warrior monster onto the field. Not the same turn you use Isolde, remember that if you do add it, but still a great addition. And as for the play that I spoke of before, having your initial 2 monsters for your summon, one of them being your Fire Flint Lady and the other one being Jute Fighter. These are the 2 cards you just need for that setup on the field. So what you'll do is you'll normal summon out your Jute Fighter, and then since you control a warrior monster, you can special summon Fire Flint Lady onto the field. You will then synchro the 2 into your level 3 Goyo Defender. You will then activate Goyo Defender to summon out another Defender onto the field, and then the last Defender to summon the final one out of the deck, just giving you that additional monster on the field. You will then use the 2 Goyo Defenders for a link summon into your Vert Anaconda, which just needs 2 effect monsters. You can then activate Vert Anaconda. This will be the last special summon for the turn, paying the 2,000 life to send the Miracle Synchro Fusion to the graveyard. This will activate its effect, which then you can banish the resources, whether you want to banish the one on the field or the 2 Goyo Defenders from the graveyard. You can banish them, and with that, you meet the requirements for your Goyo Emperor, which needs 2 Earth Warrior Synchro type monsters to summon out onto the field. And all you did was use the 2 monsters you opened up within your hand, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be these 2 monsters. It can even be the TG Striker and the Dark Sea Rescue as the additional monsters to summon out, because you just need to summon out Goyo Defender for this play to work, and then you get those 2 monsters on the field for you to use to Vert and then into Emperor, and the best way to search out the Miracle Synchro Fusion. One of the other plays is more on the generic line, but it works with the Marauding Captain or even Junk Forward along with our TG Striker or even the Jute Fighter, but using these or Goblinberg is your easiest summon to get all your other different Goyo monsters on the field. If you don't summon out a monster first and your opponent controls a monster, you can summon out the TG Striker first, normal summoning the Goblinberg, and then special summoning out the Jute Fighter onto the field, synchro summoning into the level 6 Goyo Guardian, which after you summon out your Goyo Guardian onto the field, you can then use it and your TG Striker that's still on the field as well to then summon out your Goyo King, having a much better monster to take on your opponent's monsters with. The same play can be done with the Junk Forward if you special summon it out, or if you normal summon out the Marauding Captain and then summon out the level 2 tuner, going for then either one of the 2 monsters to summon out your level 5 Goyo Chaser, being the level 5 option, or if you need to go for more of a spell stop against your opponent, summoning out Naturia Beast. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making this deck a lot. I really wish we'd get more Goyo support to actually use with the extra deck monsters, but I guess we'll have to stick with just the generic warrior support until then. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.